We are recording, folks.
Oh my God! So
episode 5.
Your office is that what's up right now?
Yeah. So I had a nice surprise. My internet's not going to be working at home until probably tomorrow. It's Thanksgiving week, so I was planning to work from home this week, but had to bring all my video and audio stuff into the office. So joys of service providers.
Yeah, exactly.
For everyone listening, this is what happens when you're a startup founder and you forget to pay the bill.
No, that's not true. But yeah, how's everybody doing?
Pretty good.
I feel good. I'm going back to Montreal in a couple of weeks. I think Canada, I have an East Coast place and West Coast place. I'm divided among the two. It's getting rainy here and snowy over there. So I'm choosing snow right now because the rain is getting insane.
Nice. We have some updates on the episode 4 that we had. We're pretty big in Finland. We reached number 13 in the entrepreneurship of Apple Podcasts.
Thank you to all the Finnish people that are listening.
Yes.
I'm honored.
And also, we almost cracked top 200 in the U.S. as well, which is pretty awesome. So
it's entertaining to do. We hope you like it if you listen to it.
I like doing it regardless. I learn a lot of stuff myself and just talking through a lot of things. I think it's similar to teaching when you speak a lot of the things, and it just gives yourself the time to think about stuff as well. So I'm doing this regardless of anybody's listening.
So they just announced as an update to the FTX thing. It just got into my New York Times.
Yeah.
There are funds officially missing now versus before, where it wasn't clear if maybe something else had happened to them. Now it's like there is money missing from this thing. So this is Elizabeth Holmes just went to jail, right?
11 years.
For 11.25 years or something like that. And Sam, the SBF, is in the Bahamas or somewhere in South America, wherever the Nazis went, and is evading capture or something. But actually, are there a lot of these that we don't hear about, or are there just very few and they're high publicity or whatever?
Legitimate fraud? Is that what you're asking, Julien?
Sure. Yeah.
I think
in the most recent cycle, I think we're going to see more of this. I think that crypto, specifically, there's going to be a lot more. We've already seen, at least 6 or 7 of these cases come through, and now so FTX was the number 3 exchange, so I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more unraveling that's going to be, and you'll already see yesterday what happened. There was another exchange that went down, founded by the Winklevoss twins. Because of FTX's dealings, they're going down. So I think that there's so much interwovenness to this entire industry that we're just going to continue seeing this. And everybody was just buying each other's coins and all of these intertwining dealings and all this shadiness.
I'm interested in this new generation because there are these 20-year-old billionaires, right? Patrick and John Collison. They're not always 20-year-olds, but they're certainly younger than the previous generation of people. Because you used to have industrialists, right? You had John Rockefeller seniors, and you had whoever they would be banking or they'd be industry, right? Would be how you divided them. And they would always be 40, 50, 60, 70. They'd be in the Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett ages. And now you have these generations, and we're just used to these 20-year-old billionaires. But I feel like something is different about them, and I really like this generation. I like the fact that there are 20-year-old billionaires that are not cynical about the world, that haven't been beaten down and scammed over and over again, and they just made something that lots of people were really excited about. But at the same time, it definitely does allow someone to ride the hype train very easily, even when there's not a lot of usage.
What do you guys think about this? Are you guys seeing this broadly?
I try to stay off TikTok, so I'm newer to TikTok.
Come on.
I'm dead serious. I'm not it's too addictive, so I try literally to stay off it. But I'm familiar I see the Instagram ads, the get-rich-quick style Instagram ads, and you definitely see it on Twitter. Especially in the crypto sphere.
All the thought leaders, and not e-commerce is another one. I'm in that industry too. There's so many of these thought leaders, basically drop shipping, get rich quick, all these things. That's the easiest way. You don't have to buy anything, and it's just get rich quick. Buy some things from Alibaba, and then link them to a Shopify store, and you just get rich.
I have a friend who teaches seminars and training about this domain. Let's call it like that. And his Instagram is always pictures of him on private jets. And I think that's part of a persona to get other people to buy his course. And then I think the course is like $5,000-$10,000 to teach you how to do X skills to succeed in the e-commerce space. So that I've seen a lot of.
Be in the mastermind, then you can really be in the mastermind in my inner circle. And then that costs $50,000. But here we meet once a week and we really gather together. And it's basically, I'm in the coaching space. There's a ton of these things like this in this space of people like literally selling to the generation down. And is it raw like MLM? Like maybe sometimes it's just selling into hope, which is really what all the entrepreneurship really is, right? All entrepreneurship has to sell into hope in some way or another. On the Shopify side, you're selling like, make a set of cups. On our side, it's sell yourself, right? When it's selling services. And I come from affiliate marketing, which is another place where that used to happen, right? And I get it. It's never going to be, it's an especially really prominent part of American. And I don't know that it really exists in lots of other places because you don't have that get rich quick. You can just be anything is possible type of attitude in Europe. Nobody believes anything is possible in Europe. Nobody believes anything is possible anywhere else. Only in the United States is it possible. But for startup founders, it feels still like the majority of people are like, I'm in it for the long haul. And we're still going through this attitude of it takes 7 to 10 years to build a serious company. And that's how you build value.
You even mentioned the Stripe founders being young and 20-somethings. Aren't they about 10 years in at this point? And I don't think they're that young anymore. They were young, and now they've aged.
Yeah, and it does look, you can tell a little bit, but they're still young and definitely, it's the purity of it that I think about. When I think about people that are 30, like Reid Hoffman, no longer 30, but you get a sense as to the type of person. It is someone who's like very idealistic still, someone who's not, I guess it's reflected in the margin of the businesses, like a Stripe business is a 70% margin profile. It's not actually 70% margin in the transactions, but higher up, it's a software business. And so when you have 70% margins in your business, it's almost like you can be less frugal and you can have more of a giveaway type of attitude. Whereas in industry back in the day, they were running off like we have to sell vacuum tubes and 2% margin, get 2% margin out of it. So by definition, you had people that were way more Scrooge McDuck is like the stereotype that I think of.
Have you seen some of those generative AI businesses, Copy AI, Jasper AI? It's interesting because they're all built on top of OpenAI's GPT-3 model. And unlike most other software these days, there's no freemium model. It's 5-day trial with a credit card or 7-day trial without a credit card because they can't. I assume it's the margin profile you're describing. I don't know how much they're marking it up and what margin they're actually generating. But it's interesting to see those type of businesses versus the long tail and how we think about Vowel as a viral business. And that we want to do freemium at all costs.
Yeah, with the generative AI, I still don't see that many use cases popping out of it. Obviously, it could be a good business for them, and there's going to be some winners. Obviously, I look at these. Everything has like an arc, like it has the hype cycle, and then the trough of delusionment or whatever, and then maybe gain some speed and get some use cases. I think we're still too early into that. It seems like a real technology. Machine learning is another one as well. I'd say that industry is a lot more mature, but like how many true use cases and companies have been built on that? You have Scale.ai, which is like a provider for other types of companies like self-driving car companies use them to help them label things. But is it truly like revolutionary? I think we're still like really early on, and it has a very narrow set of use cases. There's just not, to me, a lot of that stuff is like in the research phase still. I'd say machine learning is a little bit later on, generative AI is still in the hypercycle and very few use cases. But what all of us are building right now, I think, are like real businesses that we have customers and users today. It's like we're all like building off of, probably have Postgres like databases, and we're building off of a problem that we're solving for customers today, not in like the hopes that this and then this will happen, or we have this cool technology. I can't speak for Joe yet because I don't exactly know exactly what you're building, so maybe I'm wrong. But I know with Julien and you and myself, it's really around like we're trying to solve like real customer problems. It's not around like the technology as the product.
So I have some coaching clients that are technology as a problem, technology looking for a thing,
right,
and that are on the path to getting there. You definitely see that with first-time founders. With second-time founders, and I think we know something about, we'll let Joe out himself or whatever, whenever he likes at his own cadence, but I think it is rare for someone to have a moonshot as a second time. Even if it is a moonshot, it's a moonshot like going after Amazon type of moonshot, or Vowel, the way Vowel goes after Zoom. It's crazy, but it's not, there might not be a market. It's crazy, and it's like we have to be really good executors to be able to succeed inside of it.
Joe, and you're welcome to tell everyone what you're...
Yeah, I was going to you went through it.
I think the way we think about it is closer to Andy and the like, look at somebody who's doing something that's really important, but understand that there's holes in what is being delivered to the market and try to capture that. And so that's more in line with how we're approaching our problem, and certainly trying to leverage new technologies and related. You can imagine every entrepreneur trying to figure out how to add a slide in their deck of generative AI. We've all been through that cycle a bunch of times. And and the joke of, oh, just get it, you'll get funded instantly if it says crypto Web3, or it's every 6 months it's something new. So we all, I think, to stay up on what the new technologies are and think about how we can leverage them in our business without over rotating just to do the cool thing that everyone's doing.
Yeah. I think it's well understood, like whenever the cool thing has showed up in the media, it's probably too late to have started that thing. Maybe not true with Web3, but Joe, when you were looking for a thing, how did you cycle through? Many people recently in private conversations have mentioned the Chris Dixon idea maze to me. And I was wondering if you've thought about this, like how you thought about going your way through the idea maze, since you are in the earliest stages of any of us here.
Can you tell me what the idea maze is before Joe answers it? Because I actually don't know, and I assume other people don't know.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and express it, and maybe someone can Google it while I'm talking about it. And so the idea maze, as far as I understand, it's Chris Dixon's idea, and Chris Dixon is always right. And I actually believe this, and so he is just smarter than everyone else. And so I mean it. I'm not even being sarcastic. I think he's great. And his concept of the idea maze is a startup basically starts out with, I want to say, capital. It could be human capital. It could be financial capital. It starts out with a set of resources. And in front of it is a maze. And you go through the maze like a rat. And you're like, we're looking for a startup idea, which is essentially a way of saying we're looking for something that grows fast, or that a lot of people are going to adopt. Okay. Sometimes you start out with something. Sometimes you start out with no ideas at all, like you're YC and you own a YC and you're 3 people and you're really smart. And they're like, we're going to let you in. Here's 120K or whatever. And the idea, the way that you go through it is you're like, okay, let's go right from here. Okay, let's go left from here. Oh, this is a dead end. We have to turn around. And you're going your way through the idea maze. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to prototype things, build them out, be like, how is this going to turn out? Is this a dead end? Oh, we followed this idea of, an example for us is an early version of our product at Practice used to be all chat. And it was like, what if you took Future Fit and you allowed anyone to use it to teach anything instead of just fitness? And it'd be like, go through it, be like, oh, actually, this is a dead end. Turn around in the maze, go out and go look for something else until you find a company. That's what the idea maze is. And everyone does it in one way or another. And sometimes they don't even know that they're doing it, but it's been more and more commonly kind of to in conversations of it. Is that clear, Andy?
Yeah, very clear. I just had never heard the term before.
Yeah.
I just looked it up quickly. It's really around like the journey around the kind of the more experienced founder or maybe the better founder will look to solve problems and look to, when they do get to a dead end, they'll then reevaluate and change, versus other people will just continue down that path and they won't change the what they're building.
And the
So it's
ultimate
not
objective
maze.
is a market / a set of customers or a set of people that use it and love it.
Yeah.
And so back to the question which we posed to Joe, which is in the early stages, as a second-time founder, third-time founder really with a lot of experience, how did you think about what your process was going to look like?
Yeah, I think being really passionate about the problem we're trying to solve without falling in love with any specific solution is the key to that. And, you know, it's so easy to get caught in this like sunk cost. We built chat, or we built this thing, and how do we now reverse engineer the problem to fit that? And being willing to burn those early product initiatives down. I don't know that I've ever not been in that maze. I feel like in a lot of ways through these companies, and maybe for a minute at Klout, we did truly hit product market fit and break out, but always thinking about it. Are we approaching this in the right way? What really are these signals telling us? Is it false positives? Like, I've raised whole rounds off false positives, and it hit like
We all have.
yeah.
Maybe not Andy.
He was false positive, actually.
I was the technology seeking a product, but at the end of the day, we were beautifully simple. We were making a baby monitor, and people buy baby monitors. Yeah. Mine was a little bit different.
So in the process, by the way, how can you tell these false positives from the actual real data, Joe? Do you have a process?
It's really time and not. Yeah, I think going through this, you realize just shit fails a lot. And so I am always skeptical of stats are whatever good thing happens. I'm always like, what bad thing's going to happen? And not just ignoring those little, sometimes they're just in your stomach. Sometimes they're in their data. What are those little things and what are they telling you? Because it's not, by the time it's obvious, it's too late.
Yes, for sure. You've burned so much cash. You burn so many resources and your people are demotivated, right?
Totally.
Everybody knows type of thing.
I think one important thing that it's really hard to tell how long you should spend on a certain time. So for us at Airhouse, we're a marketplace. And so we actually didn't provide real value until we had liquidity in the marketplace. And for us, that took us like 2.5 years to get. And the only reason that we went after this is because we knew the industry extremely well, but it's tough to go through that 2.5 years and know that, okay, once we get here, once we have true liquidity, that's the time that we can then evaluate if we actually have a better product or not. I think that's really tough for a lot of people. I think that a lot of people are, especially first-time founders, which they may hit it or not, they're looking for that instant gratification of it working or it's not working, or that TechCrunch article or product launch that's going to push them over something. Or they're actually, I think, will make decisions too early on things that aren't working, that they maybe should be spending a little bit more time on that. So I think it definitely is more an art than a science. And I think the more time that you have done this, I will definitely, this is the whole podcast is a second time founders podcast. And I think that once you've done it before, you know, and you have those feelings, but sometimes you don't know. And sometimes you just need to have that hunch. Like with us, like I thought we would have liquidity in our marketplace within a year. And it took us 2.5 years, up to 3 years.
Especially, Kevin, with your first company just going insanely up for a super long time. I was looking back at breather decks, and just as inspiration, I was just showing them to a few people, and not relevant anymore. It's 5+ years ago. And you're just looking at the skyrocketing growth on these things during this era. And I know that you had a lot of that during that phase. What was it like to wait 2.5 years to understand whether something was even going to start working or not with your second time?
I knew that it would work.
Wait, hold
eventually.
Dig into why you knew. Why did you know?
So In our industry, there are a lot of, so we basically help brands with their fulfillment and warehousing. So there's, in the US alone, there's 25,000 warehouses, and there's many more globally. And one of the big problems is that brands, it's really hard to know which warehouses you should be working with. The technology is not great in the higher quality operations warehouses. So it was, to me, it was like really a factor, like, how do we get the best warehouses on board on our platform, and then how do we actually sell that to customers, and then how do we get more warehouses and more customers and continue to go up market? So it made sense to me that it would work just based on talking to so many people that have been through like 5 or 10 different warehouses in their life cycle of a company. But it was extremely, going back to your question, like it was extremely hard in those 2.5 years. Like I thought that we would be much further along. We actually did 2 bridge rounds after our initial seed. Thought that it would be like so initially turned down a big like $10 million like seed round. I was like, no, we're going to be like really scrappy and hungry. Then we took $2.5 million as a seed round. We're like, no, we don't need a lot here. It's just going to take time to build liquidity and all this, and it did, but it took way longer. So we ended up raising, I think it was like $6.5 million in like our official seed round. But like that process was really extremely painful, especially from somebody that had such a. I was in the hype cycle, and we raised so much capital. We had so much press and all of that, but I knew that it didn't amount to anything. So I was like, I'm anti everything. We launched under a fake name. I would love to hear actually Joe's perspective right now going through it. What we did, we launched under a fake name, and I didn't put my name behind it. We have a ton of competitors in the space, and we didn't go public with it until we were at like that 2.5 year mark, where I knew that like we were ahead enough of a competition and we had a good enough product. But it was extremely painful, especially from somebody that had that instant gratification early on. But I knew that's a poison for a company. And going back to our initial topic, nobody, even the Collison brothers of Stripe, it takes a long time to be successful. It really does. Nothing is get rich or get successful quickly in this world. If it is, you're extremely lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's
Act of God, lightning.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. You've won the lotto.
No one here has done that. Let's just be totally clear for the audience.
We're not broke. Sometimes I look at Joe's background, and I'm like, he's definitely richer than that.
Julien, you have 2 houses.
Yeah.
They're not houses.
You have a cabin and a shack.
So, Kevin, in your version of the idea maze, did you know what you were going at right at the very beginning? Or was there a maze of trying to figure out what was happening? And then, Joe, I want to get to your question about staying anonymous, because I know you're trying to do that a little bit. Kevin, go for it.
Yeah, we definitely knew what to build, and it was really around like how do we get these warehouses, how do we get high quality warehouses on our product? And what we did is we created our fake brand, got our initial warehouses, and churned through them, and got more brands and all this, and we did this back and forth dance with smaller brands until we were able to get some really high quality partners. But we knew that product would actually work. And then we always knew that once we got there, this is a product that we can go global, and we can just made a ton of sense. But the thing that I've always looked for in our business, and why that I'm looking to release what we're scaling right now, is like the lack of churn. So in our industry, the churn is extremely high. So we are in a fragmented low NPS industry. Right. And we have basically 0 churn, which is an amazing sign. So now we're at liquidity in our marketplace, and we basically have 0 churn, and we are winning deals from all of the other like people that go out and they'll compare 30 other services to us. And we're winning deals in our certain size of customer, and then we're going up market. But like that to me, the churn part was like something that was extremely like, that was the metric that I was looking at. Can we not have a warehouse ourselves and then still be a better product than actually owning the entire full stack? And then when I saw that, I was like, okay, that is now we are ready to go public. We're ready to take more capital on and go after it.
You were like, this product is great, and we know because we are the user.
Yes. No, we listen to our customers. We're like, early on we had a brand. We don't still sell anything. Like the sunglass company that we bought, we you can't buy sunglasses off it anymore.
And so, Joe, on the question of staying anonymous, your company URL, because I know, of course, I know your email address is literally some random squiggle of letters, as far as I know. And so, your thing, are you deliberately doing what Kevin described?
Both Joymode and this current company started under fake names, and part of that was a reaction to Klout just got so much press. We literally hired a PR firm to kill press because we were getting too many. It was just like, the story of the company was so far ahead of the reality of the company. In that gap is where backlash happens. I wanted a break from that, and also wanted and continue to want products that people use because the products are helpful, not because it's associated to me or some set of investors or some past company or whatever. And then also freedom in this maze. So knowing that the brand I start with, that I could do crazy shit, I could change the pricing, knowing that it's going to, at the end, burn down and be reset with the forever brand, gives me and the team, I think, a lot more leeway to be experimental, push the edges, and not worry that current users we have are going to be pissed off because there's going to be a natural reset. So we're getting close to the actual company. And I think the first conversation I had with you guys before we started doing this podcast was like feeling the stress of, it has been over a year and we've just been grinding on in the shadows with a very small number of users, learning and iterating and testing and problem solving, whatever. So I'm dying to get this out. It's been nice focusing on the craft and really trying to deliver something, but nothing beats like the reality check you get when you do go broad. Yeah, so we're close. Yeah, I think.
But you still have real users now, though, and I'd say that these users are more valuable than the ones that you're going to go launch with.
Yeah, we do have real users, but like we don't have any. It's very small scale. We have like 200 people on a test flight type stuff, and it's been really bad. And they've
still real users, yeah.
Yeah, and we're learning a ton from them, and they've helped us work through this maze. But I'm excited to take the next step. I feel like we've been having the same conversation for a year, so it's
right.
It's part of being mature and an entrepreneur is being okay with that process and seeing it through. But it's like exciting to head towards the other end of it.
I would say even more. It's a lot of second or third time entrepreneurs, they will try to pump up what they're doing even before they launch and get this massive, and they get a lot of false positives. So Joe, what I would say that you're doing, and not to pat myself on the back, but I guess I am anyways, what I did early on as well, it's like I didn't want to have those false positives. Like when you've done something of notoriety that people found value in, you're going to have people that are going to try it and they're going to say they like it just because they've been following you and you've done something successful before. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to have those false positives and build a company around it or get those hype cycles. There's so many other second-time founders that do this. I don't know if I have a few companies. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus that's still building, but I definitely can think of a few companies off the top of my head that they have probably a long waiting list of customers just because of who they are, but their product is not that great. So I think that it's great what you're doing. It shows not even just like the maturity of doing it for a second time, but it's like another level of you don't want to get those false positives. You want to actually build something that has value without having your name attached to it.
Yeah, that would be the best case. That no one cares.
Your thing last week that you posted was, that I noticed was being spread around, that you posted on Medium, was it's about using the hype that you have without buying your own hype that you have yourself. You had a better way of phrasing it. What was that?
Yeah, I think it was something like, to me, a serial entrepreneur is about leveraging your hype without believing your hype.
Right. Yeah,
and so it's great. People will take the call. Like you get great terms on investment. You get to pick who you want to work with. People want to say yes. And whether that's potential employees or whatever, but not letting that convince yourself that you've actually figured anything out, because I know I definitely haven't. Yeah, that's the tightrope I'm always thinking about and trying to walk.
That churn rate that really resonated with me, what Kevin said before. I'm in an SMB space, right? And so none of these customers that I have today, we have a lot of people trying the product today and a fair number becoming customers, but they just don't give a shit about me. So they're like, who is this guy? They don't know a thing. They might like Google my LinkedIn to figure out if I'm legit, right? Because anyone can start a product, and they're like, oh, he seems like a legit dude. But they don't. They're like, I don't care, cancel. And so every single one of them breaks our heart. And we know that in SMB, we're never going to get to like a 0% churn, but it is so real. And it's just so unavoidable. And Andy, I know that you called me this week talking about churn. And I also have a coaching client who's like dealing with his first renewals that he is going to get or not get at the end of the year or whatever. Is that the best predictor? And is that the number one thing that the early entrepreneur should focus on then?
Me personally, I think retention is the number one. So I did something similar to Joe, and I think it's similar to what you're doing, Julien. I didn't tap my network. So we came out of beta in April. We launched the product. We started charging at the end of August. I have yet to really tap my network. I think Kevin's one of the few from my network who got onboarded, but I think he actually found out about our product from a vendor. And what I did is it's all from Twitter and it's all from content. So it's an organic strategy. So I wanted to prove before I was willing to go out and go tap my friend group that this is real. And I was talking to some VC, I guess it was a month ago at this point, and he looked at one of the slides and in my deck, and it was a customer quote being like, Vowel saved us on average $100 per user per year. The guy goes to me, and it took me a little aback. He goes, that's just one of your friends, right? And I was like, no, it's some, and I was like totally caught off guard. I was like, no, that's a Twitter post from somebody I've never met before. And he just continues to say how much he loves my product. And so I've done a very similar strategy that I think what Joe's describing. I've used my brand to acquire those customers, so my name. But even in the early days, we all had a placeholder. I had a placeholder name for the company. The placeholder name was Chatter. We used Chatter because my CTO happened to own the domain, chatterbubble.com. That was the only reason we did.
They're going to say chatter.com. I was like, that's a damn good domain.
No, it was either Chatter or he owned Chatterbubble and he owned Soul Chain. Those were the two domains he owned. And Soul Chain was a little too weird for me. Chatterbubble worked. And so like the early email addresses and stuff and like some of our internal Slack and stuff still has Chatterbubble on it, knowing that we were never going to use that name, but at least we had a .com. And that was the only reason we chose that name. And then we figured, okay, at some point when we get to a product that we feel comfortable behind, we'll actually name it. And that's how we came up with Vowel. So I've done that with both of my companies. And I actually think it's a very smart strategy. I am petrified of friends using my product and telling me it's amazing. It is so much, there is so much false positive there. I want a bunch of random people who I found on the internet who will subscribe and pay. Those are the type of people, because if I can find 100 of those or 1,000 of those, I can find another 100,000, assuming I'm not in some really niche market.
I use that lesson a lot. That lesson of if there's one, there's 10. If there's 10, there's 100. If there's 100, then there's 1,000. So we are in the high hundreds of customers today at my company. And so I'm like, okay. And so there are several thousand out there. I just got to go out there and find them, which is why at the early stage, like Joe's stage, it's just, can I just have one person that just fucking loves it, please?
Yeah.
Just
Kevin,
one.
what was your fake name before Airhouse?
Postworks.
Postworks?
Yep. It was just some random thing that we had. And Julien, that reminds me of, I think it's a Brian Chesky from Airbnb quote. It's find 100 users that will love your product versus 1,000 that will like it or something like that.
So, because especially in the era of product hunts, it is so easy to just get 10,000 randos to just like a post.
Yeah.
And then just abandon you. And then the fear of this waiting list is that it turns out that you create a waiting list and then you could sell VCs on your waiting list, or at least you could in 2021. But then when you email them like a year later, they actually have no idea what this email is.
Do you know how many?
They don't remember you.
How many things have you all signed up for on a waiting list, and then you get the email, and it's every day I get an email. It's like, what is this, and what did I sign up for?
I hate them so much.
So the standard is higher than ever. And Andy, you and I were talking about feature parity this week.
Yes.
What is really required, even in that, it blows my mind sometimes in this small business category. People come to us and they're like, what I needed to do is I needed to do what this person does, this feature does, this feature does. I need this feature, I need this feature. One recent one, an example, is I need a package to be splittable into multiple payments, and I need those payments to be auto-transacted on a monthly or whatever basis until the entire package has been paid for. And just to give you a sense of context, like my product is $29. And it's crazy what is required for feature parity to be able to make it out there in the real world, right? So it just hits me really hard sometimes.
So Julien and I are very much in the self-service SaaS business. For anyone who doesn't, mine will definitely move up market over time. Julien's, I don't know that you ever will, but you correct me if I'm wrong there. You may, but we'll see where the future holds, because coaches are, by definition, maybe a collective at best. Kevin, you're enterprise sales.
So much. It's so
You're
nice.
steak dinners and golf, aren't you?
Oh, it's so much nicer than being like a self-serve and optimizing all of those things, and it's great.
You go to conferences. And Joe, what are your
I don't, to be clear. I don't go to conferences. We get referrals from other customers, and we do content marketing, and we do a ton of other things. I am not a conference person. We eventually probably will go attend conferences. We can eventually hold our own conferences based on the size of the industry that it's in, but we don't need to, which is what I love so much.
We're like pure consumer.
Yeah.
That's where you get the most suffering, from my perspective. Is like when raw consumers hit your thing and they're like, what the fuck is this shit? This sucks so hard. They do not care about you. That's why that era of test flight is so important, because it also allows you to, hopefully you're getting a reality check.
Oh, definitely.
Those 200 people, not like literally smashing you down every single day. This is just a piece of trash. So it's comforting.
Yeah.
Hey, if they're telling you it's a piece of trash and they're still using it, you got something there.
That is actually such a great insight, that like the customers that are the one, like as you are continuing evolving and building your product, the ones that are the loudest, they're typically some of the most valuable ones, because they're going to give you the insights that because the ones that just don't find value in your product will just leave. They won't tell you anything or anything like that. But if you're really solving a real problem for somebody and they're going to be extremely vocal about, this is actually what I run into right now. We work with a ton of different partners. We're going into Black Friday is going to be our busiest season. Like, we have customers that are yelling because this thing didn't happen or any of that. And it's very chaotic, but like, those are extremely valuable customers because they really care. The ones that don't say anything are like the ones like you just know you just don't have a fit at all. But that's a great point. What do you guys think in your different industries around churn? Obviously, consumer has its own initial churn and cohort pieces, like SaaS does for different segments as well. How do you guys think about that?
Joe, you start.
Or usage as well.
I'm going to talk about it less from the business side, more just how one thing I've always struggled with was not like, this is so lame, but like feeling like my feelings get hurt when people churn, because we work so hard. We love this so much. Why don't you see it? And it's also when employees leave. It's so much.
Yeah.
It's hard for the company not to get tied up into personal identity.
It really is.
So when somebody churns or leaves, it's like a stab more than a slight. So I think I would really suffer. You talking about enterprise sales and where you have fewer, but like more concentrated, higher value customers. I think I would like emotionally, the churn would be really hard for me.
Yeah.
Where at least on consumer, it's retention. It's not,
Right.
It's just, hey, are they coming back every week, every month, every 6 months? Like, how do we get it more? They're never really churning.
Yeah. Because Kevin, what happens, what I understand, I've never been in a year-long cycle type of business, is that the problem, one of the reasons it maybe took you 2.5 years, I don't know, is that they will do a yearly deal, and then a year in, then you're like, all the stuff that we did for your renewal was for nothing, and now you're churning out. And so you don't really get customer signal at the right rate and with the same number of data points. Is that right?
Not typically for our industry, yes, but we actually changed this. So our industry prior to us would be like yearly commitments. We changed that to no commitments, no minimums. We don't own any warehouses, so we don't need to have we don't own the warehouses. We don't have to deal with the people. So we actually changed that. But we've learned over time, like early on, like our early customers, one of the most things that we learned is that their onboarding time, the first month, is like the most important piece that we gain trust. We did not know. It took us probably a year after we had some decent liquidity to understand that. And so then we had some customers churn. And for us, it was typically around like the warehouse performance. So in our industry, things go lost or things don't get delivered on time or that kind of stuff. And a lot of things out of our control. But also we need to internalize that and actually build that into our actual like product. And so we found out that the churning was really around the trust that we built in that first month. And so we do things now, testing packaging requirements on the first few orders. We handhold them through that entire process. But I actually hate companies. I actually just saw a renewal come up for Lever. I don't know if you guys use Lever or not. All of these different SaaS services that have yearly commitments. And I'm just like, if you're so good, like, why do you need to have yearly commitments at all? Like, why can't you just be month to month? And like, I should be able to leave whenever I don't find value in it. And like for our business, we don't have that. You can leave whenever you want. And it's up to us to try to make a better product so you never will leave. We're very similar in like AWS in that respect. We're a transactional business.
The problem is like Lever, it's a meh
We all
product.
canceled the Lever account. Each one of us has canceled the Lever account.
I have one still. I like don't want to cancel it, but
Got it.
I'm sure the renewal is coming up, and every time we renew, it's like it's meh at best. What did you change to, Julien?
I don't use any because I'm not really hiring people at the moment, but I would go to Ashby, which is apparently better, but I happen to be an investor in it. So that's why. Which is
My big fear is canceling it, and then what happens is we lose access, and then people come in 3 years later who've interviewed with us already, and you're thinking about hiring them, and you can't remember why you didn't hire them previously.
Kevin,
I personally hate all of these companies that do this. Also, I hate on the absolute worst is when you get to the yearly renewal. It's like, surprise, new pricing for the same features. It's that there's been some growth team behind that's, hey, you know what we're going to do to actually juice our ARR numbers? It's like, we're going to start charging people more for the same features.
Kevin,
I hate teams like that so much.
It blows my mind how... Sorry, Julien, go ahead.
I was going to say, you probably need to raise your prices if you think this, Kevin, because it's possible that you're just not you're not managing it to value. I'm in SMB, okay? In SMB, it's just like everyone complains about your price no matter what it is. So whether it be $15, $50, $30, like it is literally like, it's not thought of in the same way. And so this idea that it's just going to be that it is even based in reality is just like a crazy thing, because you have so many consumers. You only have a certain number of warehouses you could theoretically reach. For us, it's like our customers could theoretically be in the millions. So it's like, what's the value? The answer is we make it up, right? And it's
for sure.
Based on what people are willing to pay. And that's just the end of it, right? Bare metrics just like 5x their prices.
Right.
And they're just like, let's see what happens. And turns out a lot of people are willing to pay that additional price. And
to be clear, like I may say that I don't like it, but if the product is good enough, I'm going to pay it. So like,
Totally.
I still can personally hate those teams and do all those things, but if they are providing a good enough product and all that, I would actually. So I do hate the products that. So I don't know if you guys have used Mode. This is one of the products that we used, like a BI
What is the
tool.
product called?
Mode.
I also hate that product. And
Okay, they're far enough along that I feel okay hating on them. So they're not just a small startup anymore, but they would just be a yearly renewals. It's going to be 2 or 3 times the same amount that you paid last year for no additional features. It's okay, at least upsell us on something or give us something new or like all of these different things. It just feels really not great. And we eventually are moving off of Mode into another service.
What are you going to move to?
There's this new product called Canvas that we're going on to. So the big thing they solved is that Salesforce to your Postgres. That's a big thing for us. We're looking at generating leads and stuff like that, so probably not as relevant to something you guys as SaaS, but there's a big kind of gap in the BI space there. But they're more reasonable priced and they're built for us. And I'm sure Mode provides a lot of value for a lot of customers, but I hate these growth hacking tactics of trying to juice out an extra whatever, and they're not really providing value. But again, Julien, to your point, you could do that. If you provide enough value, I can complain as much as I want, and I'm still going to stick with you if you are better than everybody else.
I want to ask a question to Joe in a moment about pricing versus viral stuff, because I know you're focused more on viral things. I'll make a comment. Recently, someone, sure enough, in a growth agency that I'm associated with, said you should add 2-year pricing. And what's the name of that company that does the mental, like the mind map thing? What is that? It's called
Rome Research?
Rome Research. They have a category for pricing called Believer. And I have never seen anything I've loved more in my life. They're just like, if you're a believer, pay for 5 years as one of the options. And I just think that is the most amazing, godlike fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. Back to the growth agency, they said, add 2-year pricing as a dummy so that a small number of people will grab it, but it will cause more people to choose annual. And so that is a version of your growth hack, Kevin, that you're talking about. And even though you hate it, at the same time, aren't you like, maybe I should do that? And
sure.
Joe, talk to me about free models, which I know that you have tended towards, versus pricing with Joymode where you charged.
Yeah, totally different businesses. Klout and the new business, pure consumer, especially in the early days, the metrics, user growth and engagement, not revenue. Joymode, we did have subscription, and we played with a million different pricing models, from yearly subscription with upsells of what you were renting from us, to monthly, to a la carte, to everything, and even testing out zip code levels to see if what we could learn. We never got it right. It just never got enough product market fit to matter. So I don't know that I have any super smart takeaways. It's a hard problem, and yeah, but I've also been hit up with the growth hacking and
but
inflated prices.
Your choice of a $0 price, that must mean that you have much more confidence being able to make something, quote unquote, go viral than you do in being able to generate $1 from a customer in a, let's call it, more traditional sense.
Yes, I do think I am good at and can design products that have natural product-driven user growth. And where Klout was like, we had many millions of users who never spent a penny on user acquisition because we figured out how to get everyone talking about their Klout score. And the thing we're building now is like, growth is built into the product, where you can almost only use the product by inviting people.
And you figured out that was your DNA as a founder, and that's what you're good at.
Yeah, that's how my brain works the best. So I'm gonna bet on that and see what happens. And I've had success before, but it's consumer again is hard. It's like
the hardest
act of God if it hits or not.
I was with somebody recently, and I think actually a lot of founders make this mistake. I think a lot of founders do make the mistake as they don't want to raise pricing. And so I was with a professional CEO who had just taken over a social product category. You all know it. And I think their original pricing was like a couple dollars a month, and the business hadn't grown in a year. And what he said to me was, first thing I did was raise pricing $2.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you have massive growth in the business. And that's always been Adobe's pricings. That's always been Adobe. Every year, they're going to raise pricing a little bit. That's how they grow. And volumes, they're going to grow volume, but they also want some type of ability to have pricing power. And especially in the SMB segment, people are always worried about not having it, but you actually probably have the ability to raise $1 or $2 pricing almost every year, and you just don't realize it and you're afraid to do it. And so it's interesting to see, like, when is Superhuman going to start increasing the price?
It shocks me that they have not.
It shocks me too.
I have raised prices. We were at a test price, so it doesn't really matter. It's not real. But I think I've raised prices 5 times this year.
That's great.
Sense. But just because we don't know.
Yeah.
Look at all that growth, Julien.
That's not the only way we grow. The real thing is, will the next incremental customer pay the new price?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the test. And we'll probably do it on Jan 1, and then we'll probably do it again 3 months later to keep testing the price over and over again. What is the real value here? Because it's software, you can't know.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
True. What are we ending on that?
Okay, there we go.
Episode 5 in the books. Finland, we see you. We're gonna try to use the script for anybody that is interested in podcasting to tighten this podcast up a little bit, and we will see you for next week.
Kevin, you say we're looking for an intern to produce
We're
this.
looking for a free intern to produce this.
Finland.
See
Finland,
everybody.
we see you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, we keep it real and we bring you the facts. It's the Second Time Founders podcast. Talking tech news, the show is a must. Not some billionaire trying to sell you their book. We coming from a real place, plenty ups and downs. Got some insights, join the discussion now. We being honest and raw, giving you real talk. We've been at the bottom and made it happen and much more. The Second Time Founders podcast. More building, less talk.